Hi, good morning. Today is the 1st of May, 2020. And as I was scrolling through my Twitter feed, by the way, I'm Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing. I've gone by a few names, all pretty much the exact same. And unlike some people, I'm exactly who I am no matter what nickname or name is used. That being said, so scrolling through the Twitter feed, looking at different things, and I had thought about quite a few different things. But one in particular aspect in regards to those who know me or knew me at one point in time. Whether they like to admit it or not, they cannot deny the fact that I am patriotic. As much as I've actually received complaints about that I am patriotic, a proud American, someone who actually, despite the fact that I didn't graduate basic training because of that head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and all of that after effects stuff, despite all of that, still being patriotic. Which, two realistic aspects, it did truly piss off my biological family and my ex-in-laws to ends I have yet to understand. Not all of them, but a good large portion of them. By a lot. Now, another aspect is my biological mother and biological sister specifically, along with my ex-in-laws, which, okay, I understand in some regards, to a degree, of choosing my dead ex-husband when he was alive and when after his death over me. I understand my ex-in-laws in that regard because that was their family member, but at some point acknowledging the reality of the fact that their dead brother / spiritual husband at this point in time, he wasn't honest. And he was abusive. That's what he was when he was alive. He was a liar, he was abusive, he cheated on the marriage, he treated not only me like garbage, but he treated his biological children as if they were second-class citizens, instead of being, a good dad. Apparently that was too difficult for him to be a good dad. However, the irony of that debt he owes. And whether you believe in spiritual aspects or whether you do not, the reality is those individuals who cause problems in certain regards are permanently spiritually married to my dead ex-husband. Those individuals who are not related to my dead ex-husband, such as, my ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, my other ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, and their children, they did do a ritual that sealed, literally and figuratively, their spiritual marriage to my dead ex-husband. And each individual that they had convinced to be a part, knowingly, of who my dead ex-husband was, they signed up on their own. Hey, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen and Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, you finally created a pyramid of your own. Literally and figuratively since they chose to contact a Catholic church to do the funeral rites and put non-Catholic approved items into their dead brother / spiritual husband's coffin. Literally sealed. So that being said, my biological mother and biological sister, as well as my ex-in-laws, they all were infatuated with the male that my now dead ex-husband had forced me to be into a relationship with. And despite the fact that I had told people, specifically more so in the BDSM, LGBTQP, and swinger communities, that I did not ever want to be in a relationship with that particular individual, very few people understood, because all they saw me as was Lady Dori Belle. All they saw me as was the female who wore corsets a lot. They never saw what it took before wearing corsets. They refused to open their eyes. They chose to keep their eyes closed by their own choice. Anytime any serious discussions came about with genuine topics not related to that in regards to BDSM, LGBTQP, or swinger, oh, that's too dramatic. That's too much. And yet, then they wondered why they caused so much damage. Isn't it ironic that in the Bible, God comes out of a few different locations, one being out of bondage or BDSM, bondage, sadomasochism? That being said, that particular individual that my biological mother and biological sister, Anna Louise Lally Hom, is my biological mother. Patricia Ann Hom Miller, that's my biological sister. And similarly to with my dead ex-husband, they chose, along with my ex-in-laws, to support Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., over me. Now, despite the fact that I explained to my biological family how that relationship came about, and despite the fact that my dead ex-husband, when he was alive, explained to his biological family, meaning Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, he explained that to her in person, how the relationship was forced with Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. Same thing with her children, as well as his mom and dad. The only person in that family that was on my side, Grandpa Nichols, at that time, in the immediate surrounding aspect. Because Robert, my dead ex-husband, also started to explain to his brother Tony, but Tony didn't want to get into too much of the details. So, whether or not my dead ex-husband told his sister Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen in Georgia, I'm unsure of that. I really don't care. Because she hated me anyway, along with Susie Marie Nichols Lopez. So, there is that. So, in regards to Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., while I have discussed an array of aspects in regards to that individual, I don't really want to call him a human being because that's only biologically and that's it. It's the only way he's a human being is biologically. Beyond that, in my opinion, he's devoid of anything that is of worth. pun intended, since, you know. So, there were several uniforms my dead ex-husband had, and I was infuriated. Absolutely infuriated. Again, going back to that whole, I've been patriotic a really long time. I've been a proud American a really long time. And for those who know, because of reading the actual informative book, Finding a Silver Lining, in comparison to only Finding the Silver Lining by Susan MeeLing, you understand what I mean when I say conversation, as far as what I dealt with in this regard. So when my now dead ex-husband had shown me some of his belongings, one of the things he showed me was several different uniforms, and I was infuriated because they were not American uniforms. Infuriated. And so I dealt with multiple conversations to not have to see those uniforms. I told him first he needed to return them to wherever they came from. To stop that particular conversation, the acceptance of putting it in the very back of the closet was the compromise. Now, when the relationship later on, many years later on, came about in regards to Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., my now dead ex-husband, then at the time during the beginning portion of that relationship, almost ex-husband, had proudly shown those uniforms to Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., because Cactus Jack, Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., had told my now dead ex-husband, then almost ex-husband, about his 151 thing during Fiesta in San Antonio involving that Mad Max movie thing at the Alamo Drafthouse on 410 and 151. And while I had been the one voice of reason saying, hey, you really shouldn't be proud of that 151 thing. You really should, turn your life around. You really should stop being so childish. You really should grow up. After my now dead ex-husband was done in certain regards, and Cactus Jack, Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. had left the house, I dealt with a conversation because how dare I embarrass him? How dare I give my opinion? How dare I express myself? So, then when aspects of the final separation, and then my now dead ex-husband, but then ex-husband going over to Iraq and returning after supposed injury, and all that sort of stuff. Mind you, in that in-between time before going over to Iraq, I got yelled at for saluting the American flag during the national anthem during the National Guard Camp Mabry graduation for the Texas National Guard. I got yelled at not only by my now dead ex-husband, just ex-husband back then, but also Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., had agreed with my now dead ex-husband, then ex-husband, in front of all those soldiers and all the people who came to support them in their graduation. And so, while I defended myself as best as I could, at least I didn't have to worry about a conversation. At least there's that. I could only do so much because it was a military post. And I couldn't go all out in my yelling in that regard. However, afterwards, my now dead ex-husband, then ex-husband went overseas. Then injury. And then he returned back to the United States and went through what is now Warrior Transition Unit, but when I originally met my now dead ex-husband, was in Medical Hold Unit. And yes, I'm going to pause and say, I actually do enjoy saying dead ex-husband. I do. Because I survived that. And for those who don't know what I survived, as far as the relationship when it comes to my dead ex-husband, despite the fact that I hadn't seen him in 2 days, and hadn't spoken with him in 2 days, and had absolutely nothing to do with how he, mixed medication overdosed, I'm still glad that I survived instead of him. And I have every right to have the feelings, since there are so many that want to talk about feelings, I have the right to have the feelings that I do, because I survived every single one of those conversations. Every single one. And for those who didn't know, that means major beatings. Extreme beatings. Beatings that made what my biological mother and biological father did to me as a child look like child's play. Realistically. And that's saying a lot, because I was beaten as a child, badly. My biological mother laughed, even when I was an adult, that I would be in my crib crying because she wouldn't change my diaper, and it felt like battery acid to me on my skin. She thought that was funny. To the point where I had toys, as most children do, and 2 of the toys that I had were nicknamed Victim of Child Abuse because of what I did to those toys to try to deal with what occurred to me without, acting out and having to be beaten some more. So, what have I said about jokes before? There's always truth to jokes. And Anna, of her own free will, my biological mother, came up with that joke. So, going back to the reference of Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., who would proudly wear his stupid little 151 Road Warrior t-shirt around the city of San Antonio. Still don't understand that, but, that was his thing, and it was one of those, I really think that you should, not do that. And then the threat was, well, I'll talk with Robert if you don't, stop that. So, in regards to certain individuals that I've known in the BDSM lifestyle who just couldn't envision certain things, I am not the only individual who has been in an abusive relationship and survived. It is how I chose to deal with it that makes a difference. And so, if you perpetuated certain things, that again makes your spiritual marriage aspect and proves you are no better than my dead ex-husband. And if you choose not to repair that, that is of your choice, not mine. So, and again, I'm not divorcing anyone who chose to marry themselves to my dead ex-husband. It's not going to happen. You can repent, and then you'll feel better because of letting that go. But the reality is, if you cause problems to my Medal of Honor art project, there's no divorce for you. It's just how that is. And if you have a military background and you cause problems to my Medal of Honor art project, you should have known better. By far. By far. So that being said, in regards to that stuff, and going back to the aspects of Cactus Jack and the uniforms my now dead ex-husband had. I had told Cactus Jack, after finding out about my now dead ex-husband's death, before the funeral stuff that occurred and all that stuff, I was looking forward to the day that I could figure out where I was supposed to take those uniforms. Because I didn't want those in my new house. I didn't want well, that's later on, but I didn't want those in the house, period. In the new life that was, essentially in the process of becoming, I did not want that anywhere near my children. And I had dealt with that as long as I had. So, I wanted to make sure. But then there were a whole bunch of things that occurred. As far as the funeral stuff, finding out my now dead ex-husband had stolen valor and self-awarded himself a bunch of, brass and whatnot on his fruit salad and so on and so forth. All that. Which Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and her children, as well as Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen and her children, my ex-mother-in-law, Grandma Nichols, Tony Walker Nichols, my ex-brother-in-law, and which was related to them, but Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen's husband, David Osteen, all were informed by the Chief Warrant Officer 3 that their brother/son, now spiritual husband, that he stole valor. Those who do not understand what a Chief Warrant Officer 3 is, look up what average rank is at a funeral and as a funeral director. That is an E7. Not a Chief Warrant Officer 3. If a Chief Warrant Officer 3 shows up to an E5 funeral for infantry, that is a massively huge red flag. Especially when finding out that the E7 funeral director was direct ordered not to show up to the funeral for the Chief Warrant Officer 3 to be there. Just say, you don't have to have a military background to look up the ranks to see that's the reality. So, after dealing with a whole bunch more stuff, that wasn't enough at that time. But it really was enough. I was looking forward to actually beginning to enjoy life with my children as much as I had enjoyed life before, but, with more time. Where I didn't have to, constantly protect them from my children's biological father, where, my children and I could actually enjoy life. Not worry about certain things. Instead, I had a whole bunch of other things that I had to take care of. Fort Sam Houston and all that sort of stuff. And, and then there's Cactus Jack, Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. The fact that he knew I did not want to be in a relationship with him. Knew it. He knew it. He admitted that repeatedly. He threw a temper tantrum anytime I told him I don't want to be with you, when my now dead ex-husband was alive. That's before his death that I told Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., that I did not want to be in a relationship with him, that I did not choose him to be in a relationship with, and he knew that. He had the discussion with my dead ex-husband when he was alive, when it was the almost ex-husband at the time, because of the garage, where I was put up onto the stairs in the garage as the two of them sat in the garage, and my now dead ex-husband, then ex-husband, just pointed to every single physical flaw of mine to Cactus Jack, do you think you could deal with this? Can you deal with this? Can you deal with this? Yeah, she's a good cook, but you know, look at her physical aspects. And Cactus Jack made his well, I guess I could deal with this, and I guess I could deal. I don't want to have anything to do with you. I hate you. And I hated Cactus Jack from that moment. The fact that he did not ever at any point in time claim to, you know, be a man and actually stand up in my defense. The moment he accepted to be a part of that was the second I hated him. Was not wanting to be with him. There were a few points where he had actually asked, do you have a bone of contention for me? Because the way you look at me, that is definitely one way to put it. Definitely one way to put it. Bone of contention is such a nice set of words for how I feel about you. And so, real quick, I have to change the e-cigarette battery because of, well, it's that time. And so, after dealing with all the stuff when it came to Fort Sam Houston, which, in brief, I wound up going through the entire chain of command from the platoon squad sergeant to the platoon unit brigade, so on and so forth, then throughout different areas of the base, before getting to the JAG officer, and then some more throughout the Fort Sam Houston base, before then getting to the General of BAMC office, 2-star. One of the two different 2-star generals that awarded my now dead ex-husband a Bronze Star after he had been caught stealing valor and been denied a part from his unit commander when he was in Iraq. In writing, by the way. And for those who are on my dead ex-husband's side, my dead ex-husband, when he was alive and just my ex-husband, he complained to my neighbors in San Antonio that he was being denied the Purple Heart. He complained to people in the Warrior Transition Unit that he wasn't getting his Purple Heart. You know, people who could see his dress blues hanging in his closet. That being said, you know, the dress blues that had the wrong fruit salad, that whole thing. Those dress blues that took a picture at JCPenney's in those dress blues with that stolen valor. A certain DMX song is in my head with specific lyrics. That being said, after dealing with all of that and then, you know, new house and stuff like that, I forgot about the uniforms because they were in the back of the closet. Now, I will say that when my ex-brother-in-law came to the house in San Antonio and picked up all of the gun safes that I had set up and organized and all that, with the exception apparently of the Gamma 3 gun safe, I didn't realize that was hidden until being in Carrollton, Texas, and wondering, why is that here? That's supposed to be in Oklahoma, which I called the Carrollton Police Department in 2019 about, because that had the Baby Desert Eagle in it, and multiple clips with multiple rounds. And since that Baby Desert Eagle was purchased from a gun store in San Antonio, Texas, new means that the registration was taken care of. And so whatever government agency knows what the serial number is and the bullet pattern for that particular firearm is. Just as an FYI. So, but I did not see those uniforms. Looking back now, thinking back now, I didn't see those uniforms. And whether that's because my now dead ex-husband had moved into his own apartment before going into training, and he took those with him, but he left the gun safes in my house. Or whatever the case may have been, as far as Cactus Jack, Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., I do remember them kind of staying there when he had already moved out. And so, I don't know that area of time in that regard, other than when he moved out, I could have swore I still saw them there because I dealt with a no, I know that they were still there because I dealt with a conversation of I didn't want them in my house. However, when Tony came to pick up the gun safes, they weren't there. So I don't know if Cactus Jack took it upon himself to steal those uniforms and take them to his mom and dad's house in San Antonio, Texas, or if he had been a part of later on as far as taking them because of the Gamma 3 gun safe being in the Carrollton house when it shouldn't have been. And with my pattern of behavior, for that whole being patriotic aspect, realistically, those who know how patriotic I am, I have a hard time believing that people would think that I'd actually want to keep those uniforms. Just saying. Especially since Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., had been the individual who had to purchase authentic gear for his World War II reenacting in regards to being on the Nazi side. Because his words were, somebody has to play the bad guy, somebody has to be the bad guy. And my thing was, I understand that somebody has to be the bad guy in historical reenacting. I understand that. However, do you have to have authentic gear? I don't think you have to have authentic gear. I think you could get replica gear. I think you could get, like, you know, I'm seeing other guys who are doing the World War II reenacting stuff, and their gear is not authentic. Their gear is reenactment gear, or, you know, modified versions or other stuff. Like, I don't understand why you can't just do what the rest of the guys do. Like, they don't have, not all of them, there were some who did have authentic gear, but then there were others who did not. There were others who had, you know, recreated stuff. Why can't you do that? No, you want to have the authentic garbage. I'm not the only one. So, this particular video is essentially to clarify what I have stated before to people I knew in the BDSM scene. Because I did speak with Matress Renee and Jason about Cactus Jack. Because they had brought up different aspects of different areas of the state of Texas that they had gone to. And I had brought up the aspects of that 151 garbage. And Jason thought it was funny, and I said, I don't think it's really that funny. I don't see what's funny about it. I don't see anything funny about it, to be honest with you. And his thing was more along the lines of, well, you know, it was like a big party. Yeah, that encompassed the entire city of San Antonio. That put a whole bunch of people at risk. San Antonio is a military town, and as I told Cactus Jack, he's lucky he wasn't sniped. Really lucky. what I can say now is, while there aren't mountains in San Antonio, there are plenty of hill locations. Just saying. So, while at this point now I realize most likely having taken those uniforms, had I found them afterwards, to the FBI would have been like the easiest. I realize I probably would have been questioned a whole bunch. I probably would have been questioned, like, why are you bringing these to us? And the answer would have been, because I don't want them in my house. My dead ex-husband had them, and I don't want them. And I don't want to offend any country, because I don't know if any of these uniforms are still being used. And I don't want to get in trouble for that. I don't want my children to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to deal with that. And I would have dealt with the questions that would have come. I do not doubt that if I walked up to the FBI office and, did the whole, here's my ID, and here you go. I don't know what to do with these. If you guys don't want to take them, let me know what I'm supposed to do with them. And I'll take them wherever they're supposed to go, because I don't want to get in trouble at this thing. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be arrested. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to prison. Kind of weird. I have been told that about that aspect of me. Like, I just don't want to. There is nothing that, seems appealing about that. Not to me, at least. Just saying, and that's pre-head injury, too. That's pre-head injury. That's after watching certain things on the news, reading certain things in the newspaper, I don't think so. I don't want to ever do that. I don't want to 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 do that. I damn sure don't want to do that. And magazines, I just don't want to be a part of that. Nope. I don't know. That doesn't seem okay. I don't think so. I don't want to do that. I saw a lot of stuff I did not want to do. And then when it came to the military section, different military, well, that looks like a fun thing to shoot. I bet that makes a boom. Nice. What's the ratio on that? that was my. I don't deny I was a weird child. I do not deny that at all. Especially growing up in New Jersey. That was weird. I was told I was weird for that. It was one of those, I don't care. There were parishioners of the church where I would be reading the newspaper and stuff like that, because one of the guys would finish the newspaper and I'd be able to read it. And because I had to wait when getting back to the house in New Jersey for my biological parents to finish certain sections, and there was always a couple of guys that had the newspaper that, would be reading him, or different or magazines and stuff, and just be like, hey, may I please? Go ahead, Susan. Yeah, I don't have to read the comic section before reading the real stuff, and not say that I didn't enjoy the comic section, but, I really liked the news. And so it was one of those, what you reading, Susan? Well, today, in this article, there's this thing of, this was going on in Fallujah or whatever, and this is going on over here, and what did you just say, young lady? What are you reading? Oh, well, look at this and see this article. Look at those guys. They're so brave. They're so brave. What did you just say, young lady? Which part? That they're so brave? What I do wrong? Where did you see Fallujah, and how do you know how to pronounce that? Is that not how it's pronounced? No, that's exactly how it's pronounced. Oh my God, Susan. And then we, talk and stuff. And I'm just like, whatever. But, again, I had this weird thing according to people that told me I was weird for not wanting to go to prison, I was weird for not going to jail, and I was weird for not ever wanting to be arrested. Wanted to have the cleanest record ever. I ever want even the slightest little smudge. I wanted to have the cleanest record. That was my goal. Among a few other things, but yeah, I was one of those, I don't want to ever have to worry about any possibility of anything ever coming back at me. Like, I don't want to deal with that karmic repercussion. I don't want to deal with that karmic repercussion. I don't want to deal, I don't think so. Apparently, the neighbors in 736 next door want to tap and, have issues. That's not my problem. That's their problem. Everybody's been on quarantine for a while. Get over it. And so, I'd say it to their faces, but I have a feeling I would not stop with just that. So, though I will say the one time I ever saw the people from 736, they scurried to get back into their apartments. Like the ones that were going down the stairs as well as the ones in there. There's, it's like, yeah, what is your, I can see you've got a lot of problems, so I can see that, but that's not my problem. And it's just, I got stuff to do. I was working on that at the time for writing, so I was one of those, along with those. So I was one of those, go ahead, run into your apartment. And it was almost like, for those who know the East Coast area, it was almost like there were a whole bunch of roaches everywhere. The lights went on and they just, it's like, irony. Irony. Just, hypothetically speaking, in a weird little coinky-dink sort of way. So, anyway, in that regard, I at least tried to make certain things right because I did not want to be blamed for something I didn't do. I'm kind of weird. I can't believe that I'm the only person that's like that doesn't want to be blamed for something they didn't do. Just saying. I don't think I'm the only person. Then again, how many people have wrongly taken credit for things that they didn't do? Probably shouldn't be elevating those people. Maybe that's an issue that should be rectified. Just throw that out there. Just saying. However, that was the point of this particular video aspect because I don't want to get in trouble for that, and I know I wrote about it. I wrote about a lot of different things, I don't deny that. I've written like 12 books, 13 books at this point in time, and that doesn't include all of the journal blogs that I have written over the years. I mean, on Facebook and FetLife, the amount of journal blogs that I have written, if they were printed out individually, I would guesstimate the majority of them like in a standard typical font. Probably if they were to be all combined together, probably, and Cafe Mom as well, probably would equal at least 2 or 3 of the books that I've written. Probably. The way I write books, at least. So, I don't know who didn't see me writing books, as far as those who knew me, I know that I had told Cactus Jack I was in the process of writing a book. He had actually seen the beginning portions of one of the books I was writing. So, if Cactus Jack or Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr. had still been in contact with my biological family and or my ex-in-laws, and told them that he didn't see that, that was a lie. Massively huge lie. Because, well, he got to read several of the pages. He did. He got to read several of the pages on the computer. And if there was a little camera thingamabob on any of those laptops, well then probably would be imagery of him looking at a laptop and reading. Probably. Because it wasn't until Anna later on telling me that I needed to put tape over the camera area. And she was the one who said that there was a group that could see stuff. I was like, who are they? What's the group's name? Apparently, I think that group is called the NSA. Hi. And so, yeah. So that's what I had to say. You guys have a good one. The NSA also probably will be able to verify certain aspects when it comes to the treatment that I dealt with in certain conversations. Probably. So anyway, you guys have a good one. I have no problem with the NSA because, well, what I have issues with is with technology and mainly how to use it and not mess it up. That's my problem. And remembering passwords and remembering names and like the accounts and stuff. You know, that important stuff when you're going to use technology, right? Yep. Used to be so much better at technology stuff. Not so much anymore. Yeah, that head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. That's what got me. That subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of the brain. Not damage from it, along with whatever in the coma. Headaches and migraines and memory deficits and cognitive disorders. And then, you know, having gone from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. And the irony is, in first grade was when I got to work on an apple for the first time in school at Asher Holmes Elementary School. I mean, you know, Anna already had the IBM DOS in the house in New Jersey by that time, along with her computer for Prudential from Home Dell. However, I have memory issues, so there's that. Guys, have a good one. Share.